Snow was falling in thick, slow flakes, the kind that made the city feel quieter than it was. Streetlights blurred parked cars turning into rounded white shapes along the curb. Ethan Cole stood in front of the copper lantern and watched his breath cloud the air. Warm light from the windows stopped just short of his boots. Behind the glass, people moved and talked. Out here, the cold slipped through his coat and settled in his shoulders. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, thumbs stiff from the air. Lily's face filled the corner of the screen, grinning with a missing front tooth. Underneath a message, "Don't chicken out, Daddy, you promised." She had sent the same words earlier that evening. Now she was 2 floors down at Mrs. Green's apartment in pajamas, watching a movie she would talk through. She believed he would keep his word. "I know, kiddo," he said quietly. He slid the phone away and touched the other thing in his pocket, a tiny red glove knitted small enough to curl into his palm. Lily had pressed it into his hand at the door. "For luck," she had whispered, "in case you forget." The yarn scratched faintly against his skin. It did nothing for the cold, but he wrapped his fingers around it anyway. A car crept past, tires hissing over snow. A couple hurried by, arms linked. Somewhere down the block, someone whistled a Christmas melody. The few notes were enough to make his chest tighten. He shut his eyes. A different picture pushed in. Headlights on a wet mountain road, wipers fighting heavy flakes, a dashboard clock glowing in the dark. His hand clenched around the glove until the edges bit his palm. Not now. He opened his eyes and looked through the window. Inside, the copper lantern could have been a scene on a card. White tablecloths, copper shades hanging low, candles making soft circles of gold. 3 years ago, he would have walked in without thinking. Work dinners, anniversaries with Rachel. Now, rooms like this felt like another country. He had said no when his coworker first mentioned a blind date. Then she had pulled up a picture on her phone, a blonde woman with a quick smile and a city skyline behind her, and pushed the reservation toward him. "You can fix everybody's garbage disposals," she had said. "You can sit through one dinner." That night, Lily had watched him over her cereal bowl. "Are you really going to meet her?" she had asked. He had said yes. He did not want to come home and explain why he had turned around at the door. He drew a breath and looked up at the sign swinging above him. The copper lantern was painted on old wood, the colors faded. The lantern on it was tilted, but it still hung there. "You go in," he told himself soft. "You sit, you talk, you do not run." He let go of the glove long enough to grab the door handle. The metal was icy. He turned it before he could change his mind and stepped inside. Warmth met him in a rush. The air smelled like rosemary and browned butter. Voices hummed over soft piano music. His glasses fogged, and he stood still until the haze cleared. A hostess waited behind a small podium, a red scarf at her neck. "Hi," she said. "Welcome to the Copper Lantern. Do you have a reservation?" "Yeah. Cole, Ethan Cole." She tapped the tablet, then looked up with a quick smile. "Found you. Your guest is already here. Right this way." Guest made it sound formal. On his coworker's phone, it had just been a name and a face, Ava Bennett. He followed the hostess past the bar. Bottles lined the shelves, catching the light. At one of the stools, a man in a dark jacket sat with 2 colleagues, a glass of amber liquor in his hand. The loosened tie marked him as someone who did not come home with drywall dust in his hair. The man glanced over as Ethan passed, eyes skimming the worn jacket and work boots, then turned back to his friends. Ethan fixed his gaze ahead and kept going. They stopped at a small table near the front windows. Snow pressed against the glass. A candle burned in the middle of the table. The woman waiting there stood as they approached. She was a little shorter than he had imagined, wrapped in a simple dark sweater. Her hair fell past her shoulders, blonde with a few loose waves. Her eyes were gray and clear. Her mouth formed a small smile that did not quite reach those eyes. "Ava," he said. "That is me." Her voice was calm with a hint of warmth. "You must be Ethan." He lifted a hand out of habit, then stalled, not sure if a handshake was the right move. The pause felt obvious, so he changed course and caught the back of the empty chair instead. "Hi," he said. "Sorry, I am a little out of practice with all this." A flicker of amusement crossed her face. "At saying hello?" she asked. "At being a person in a place like this," he said. She let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. "Well, you made it through the door," she said. "That is a good start." The hostess set the menus down and moved away. Ethan pulled Ava's chair out. "Here," he said. "Thank you." She sat, smoothing the napkin over her lap. He took his seat across from her. Up close, he noticed the bracelet on her wrist, a thin silver chain with a tiny charm that sat a little off-center. The clasp looked slightly bent, as if it had broken once and been pushed back together. Her fingers brushed it briefly before she wrapped her hand around the water glass. The candle between them flickered when the door opened behind Ethan, then steadied again. The server arrived, a slim man with a tidy beard and a notepad tucked into his apron. "Good evening. Can I get you started with something to drink?" Ava glanced at the wine list without really reading it. "I will have the Cabernet you had by the glass last time," she said. "You got it. And for you, sir?" Ethan looked at the menu as if it were written in another language. "Just water is fine. Maybe a beer later." "Of course." The server left them with menus that seemed a little too big for the small table. Ethan opened his and pretended to study the options. The words blurred together. Everything sounded both unfamiliar and too familiar, like all the restaurant menus he had sat in front of for work events, back when he had worn a different kind of shirt and sent project updates instead of invoices. He felt Ava watching him. "You are allowed to ask what something is," she said. "They do not kick you out." "I know what most of it is," he said. "I just do not know how hungry I am." She rested her elbow on the edge of the table. "Long day." "Long few years," he said, then winced. That sounded dramatic. "Sorry, long day too." Something softened around her mouth. "Same," she said. "I left the office with half a presentation still in pieces and my email on fire. I have no idea what I am eating either." He looked up. "What do you do exactly?" he asked. "My friend just said you were in advertising. That could mean you make jingles or you own the building." "I am a creative director," she said. "I lead a team at an agency downtown. We make campaigns for people who already have everything and still want more." He raised his brows. "That sounds cheerful." "It pays the rent," she said. "Sometimes it is fun. Sometimes it is just 70 versions of a headline about shoes." The server returned with her wine and his water, then retreated again. Ethan took a sip and set his glass down carefully. The candle between them reflected in the water, a small flame wobbling on the surface. "What about you?" Ava asked. "Your friend said you fix things?" That was the official description. "He fixes things." He huffed out a short breath. "I am a handyman," he said. "I used to be a structural engineer. Bridges, parking garages, big things that are supposed to stay where you put them." "What happened?" she asked. He searched her face to see if she was asking to be polite. "A lot," he said finally. "I needed to be home more. The other job was long hours out of town, that kind of thing. This lets me pick Lily up from school, unclog some sinks, replace light fixtures, talk to old ladies about their heaters." He tried to turn it into a joke. Some of it was joke, some of it was not. Ava tilted her head. "Do you miss it, the big things?" "Sometimes," he said. "There is something nice about watching a building come together, but it turns out people are just as grateful when you keep their pipes from freezing." "Good to know," she said. "I might need your card when my apartment decides to fall apart from neglect." He smiled for real this time. "Old building?" he asked. "New building," she said. "Thin walls. Everything looks perfect until it suddenly is not." Their menus lay open in front of them, forgotten for a moment. A burst of laughter rose from the bar. The man in the dark jacket had one arm stretched along the back of his stool. Now his tie loosened further. He looked sideways toward their table eyes, tracking Ava for a heartbeat. "Undesi." Her heart beat longer than casual curiosity allowed. She noticed. Her spine straightened just enough for Ethan to see the change. "Coworker?" he asked. Her lips pressed together briefly. "Something like that," she said. "He is from my agency." "Friend?" She paused, weighing the word. "Colleague," she said. "That is accurate." The word landed with a flatness that did not invite more questions. Ethan let it sit. The server reappeared, ready for orders. They each picked something that sounded safe. Roast chicken for him, seared salmon for her. There was a low conversation about sides and sauces that did not require any emotional investment. When the server walked away, a bell over the door jingled, and a gust of cold air slipped into the room. The candle flickered again. The overhead lights trembled, went dim for a second, then came back. A murmur ran through the tables. People glanced up as if expecting an announcement. "Must be the wind," Ethan said. Ava watched the ceiling, waiting to see if the lights would falter again. "It is December in Denver," she said. "It is the law. Snow on Christmas Eve, power flirting with the idea of leaving." He looked toward the window. The snow, which had been a gentle fall when he arrived, was thicker now. Flakes raced sideways past the glass instead of drifting down. The sidewalk on the other side of the glass had lost its edges, turning into a single white sheet. He pulled his phone out and checked the screen. No new messages. Lily's name stared back at him in the last conversation. Ava noticed. "She is with someone you trust?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Our neighbor, Mrs. Green. She watched Lily when I had late meetings at my old job. She is one of those retired teachers who can scare you just by saying your name." "That sounds useful," Ava said. "She is good with Lily," he said. "Not many people are, at least not in the way that counts." There was no self-pity in his tone, just a quiet fact. Still, it made something in Ava's chest pull tight. How old is she? Ava asked. 7, he said. 7 and 3 months. She corrected me last week. A smile lifted the corner of her mouth. I remember being that precise, she said. You work hard for every month at that age. You have kids, he asked. Her eyes dipped to her wine, then back up. No, she said. Just a lot of people who think their accounts are my children. Sounds exhausting, he said. It is a full-time job, she said, then added with overtime. The piano in the corner shifted into a softer tune. A familiar melody threaded through the clink of silverware and low talk. The first lines of A Christmas Carol floated above the noise. Ethan's shoulders tightened. Ava's fingers froze on the stem of her glass. He looked at her. She looked back. For a second, they were both exposed, like someone had pulled back a curtain. Not your favorite, he asked. Not my favorite, she said. They left it there. The song continued on its own. The server brought bread and olive oil. Ethan reached for the basket and clipped his water glass with his knuckles. The glass tipped a thin arc of water spilling onto the tablecloth and one corner of Ava's menu. Sorry, he said, jerking his hand back. Sorry. I should not be trusted with breakable objects. It is fine, she said. She reached for her napkin, folding it and soaking up the water before it could drip off the edge. Her movements were quick and controlled, like this was just another tiny crisis to manage. He grabbed his own napkin and tried to help, bumping knuckles with her. They both stopped, then pulled away in the same instant. Really, she said, it is nothing. Still, he said, great first impression. She gave him a small slanting look. You got here, she said. That is more than most guys do when they hear I run creative for an ad agency. He blinked. Why, he asked. Some people hear career and translate it into problem, she said. They decide before dessert that they do not want to compete with my calendar. He thought of his days, the way he built his schedule around Lily's school trips and dentist appointments, squeezing work into the spaces between. I am pretty sure my calendar does not scare anyone, he said. It is a lot of leaking sinks and loose cabinet doors. Important work, she said. Where would we be without cabinet doors? It was a dry comment, but there was a thread of real appreciation under it. At the bar, the man in the dark jacket laughed too loudly at something his colleague said. His gaze swung over to their table again and held a fraction too long on Ava. His smile shifted, becoming a different shape when he saw she was not alone. Is he going to come over here? Ethan asked. I hope not, Ava said. Do you want me to duck so it looks like you are alone? He asked. She let out a short laugh. And leave me to be cornered in a holiday restaurant by Mark Hastings, she said. Absolutely not. Noted, he said. I will sit up straight and pretend I belong. You do, she said almost on reflex. He looked at her. The words had slipped out quickly. Color rose just under her cheekbones. She lifted her wine glass as if she could hide behind the rim. It is loud in here, she said. You might need to speak up if you start confessing crimes. Embarrassing dad stories count, he asked. I will allow them, she said. He told her about the time he had tried to make cupcakes for Lily's class and misread teaspoons as tablespoons, how the salt had made 21st graders spit into napkins, and one kid declare it was the worst day of his life. Ava smiled, then laughed at the sound, loosening the stiffness in her shoulders. Outside, the snow thickened. The shapes of the cars became softer. Headlights glowed in small, fuzzy halos. A police cruiser crept past, lights flashing without siren. Someone at a nearby table pointed at their phone, the screen bright with a weather alert. The overhead lights flickered again, longer this time. Conversations paused. A few people looked toward the bar, where a television mounted in the corner switched from a sports channel to a local news station. A red banner crawled along the bottom of the screen. The server reappeared with their food and set plates down carefully, as if steady hands might keep the electricity from wavering. Ethan glanced at the television, then back at the window, then down at his phone. He unlocked it with his thumb. No text, no missed call. Lily's name waited at the top of his messages. Ava cut into her salmon, then lowered her fork. Is there service where she is? She asked. Yeah, he said. Mrs. Green's place is only 2 blocks away. If anything was wrong, she would call. He believed that, mostly. His thumb hovered over Lily's contact. He told himself not to call just to hear her voice. It was one night, a few hours. People did this all the time. Snow slid past the window in sheets, blurring the city beyond into white. Inside, the copper lantern was bright and warm, a small island in the storm that was starting to gather outside. A sharp chime broke through the piano music. Then another. Around the room, people reached for their phones almost at the same time, screens lighting faces in blue. Ethan's phone vibrated on the table. A notification slid across the top. Winter storm warning, whiteout conditions. Avoid travel. He clicked the screen off and turned it face down. Ava raised her brows. "Cheery," she said. "Colorado," he answered. "Weather has a sense of humor." He took a bite of chicken he did not taste and glanced at the window again. The glass looked like it had been frosted from the outside. Streetlights were now soft orbs instead of clear points. He set his fork down. "I am just going to text Mrs. Green," he said. "Tell her I might be a bit later than planned." "Of course," Ava said. He picked up his phone, opened the thread with Mrs. Green, and typed, "Storm looks bad. I will come get Lily when it lets up." "Everything okay?" He sent it and stared at the typing bubble that appeared, then disappeared, then returned. "Fine here, Lily watching movie, roads getting slick. Better to stay put." He exhaled, tension loosening a notch. "Everything all right?" Ava asked. "Yeah," he said. "She says Lily is fine. They are having movie night. I am the only one panicking." "Occupational hazard," Ava said. "Of being a dad. Of being the one who comes back to an empty house if something goes wrong," she said. He studied her. There was a quiet weight under the line that made him want to ask more, but the words stayed behind his teeth. At another table, a child began to fuss. Somewhere a baby laughed. The piano shifted to something without words. The door chime tinkled again. Cold air swept across the floor, curling around Ethan's ankles. He looked up. A small figure stood just inside the entrance, bundled in a purple coat hat, pulled low, cheeks blazing red from the cold. Snow crystals clung to the scarf wrapped almost to her eyes. For half a second, his mind refused to match the shape to anything that made sense. Then the girl pushed the hat back. Brown hair sprang out from under the edge. Her eyes, clear and blue, found him across the room. "Daddy." The word cut through the noise. His chair scraped the floor as he stood. "Lily," he said. She grinned and stomped snow off her boots, the way he had taught her, sending a spray of white onto the mat. Guests at nearby tables turned to see who had called out. The hostess hurried over, eyebrows raised. "Sweetheart, you cannot just run in here," the woman said, though her voice was more surprised than scolding. Ethan was already moving. He reached the door in a few strides, heart thudding against his ribs. "What are you doing here?" His voice came out sharper than he intended. "You were supposed to stay with Mrs. Green." "I did," Lily said, "for a while." Her breath puffed out in little bursts. She dug into her coat pocket and pulled something out carefully, both hands cupped. "I wanted to bring this," she added. In her palm sat a glass snow globe, its base painted like a tiny village. The clear dome held a fir tree and a small wooden bench. A scatter of white flakes rested at the bottom, waiting to rise. "You walked here with that?" Ethan asked. "It is 2 blocks, she said. "I know the way." "I stayed on the sidewalk, mostly." She smiled again, proud of herself. He knelt so that his eyes were level with hers, the room blurring at the edges. "You do not leave the house without a grown-up. You know that." "I am not a baby," she said. "I do not care," he said. "The storm is bad. You cannot do that." Her lower lip wobbled. She hugged the snow globe closer to her chest. "I wanted you to have it," she said. "You forgot it on the shelf, and it is Christmas, and you were going on a date. And I thought maybe you would be less scared if you had it." The last words tumbled together. He closed his eyes for a second. The anger went out of him as quickly as it had flared. When he opened them, what was left was fear and something that felt too big to name. He put his hands on her shoulders, careful of the glass between them. "I am not mad because of the snow globe," he said slower. "I am mad because something could have happened to you, and I would not have known." Her eyes filled. "I am okay," she whispered. "I can see that," he said. "I need you to stay okay. That is the deal." The hostess shifted her weight, glancing at the door where the wind pushed against the glass. "Maybe we keep the serious conversation away from the entrance," she suggested. "Let us get her out of the draft." Ethan nodded and stood, keeping one hand on Lily's shoulder as he steered her toward the table. Ava had risen partway from her chair. She sat back when they approached, lips parted, expression caught between surprise and recognition. "This is Lily," Ethan said. "My daughter, who is supposed to be 2 blocks away." "Hi," Lily said before he could say more. She pushed her hat fully off, now hair falling tangled around her face. Her eyes flicked from her father to Ava, quick and assessing. "You are Ava," she added. Ava blinked. "I am," she said. "Nice to meet you." "You look like your picture," Lily said. Ethan frowned. "What picture?" "The one on Ms. Turner's phone," Lily answered. "The one she showed you in the kitchen." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Right," he said. "That picture." Lily shifted the snow globe to one hand and stuck out the other. "I would shake your hand," she said, "but this is kind of heavy." Ava smiled, something unguarded moving across her face. "We can skip the handshake," she said. "That looks important." "It is," Lily said. She set the snow globe gently on the table close to the candle. Inside, the tiny bench and tree were half hidden by flakes that had been shaken loose on the walk, still drifting down. Ava leaned closer. It is beautiful, she said. My mom gave it to me, Lily replied, the last Christmas. The words hung in the small circle of light like something fragile. Ethan pulled out a third chair from a nearby empty table and eased it into place. City said to Lily, warm up. The hostess hesitated. We were not planning on kids at this table, she said, then softened when Lily glanced up. We will figure it out. I can bring a smaller menu. Hot chocolate, maybe. Lily brightened. Yes, please, she said. The hostess smiled and headed toward the kitchen. Ethan sank back into his seat, muscles tight across his back. I am really sorry, he said to Ava. This is not how this was supposed to go. It is fine, Ava said. I like hot chocolate. Lily looked between them. My dad is nervous, she told Ava as if sharing a secret. He talks a lot when he is nervous. And he laughs too loud, just so you know. Thank you for the warning, Ava said. It is okay, Lily added. He is nice. Hey, Ethan said. He felt his ears heating. Ava's eyes crinkled slightly at the corners as she fought another smile. Lily turned to her father. Do you like her? She asked. Lily, he said. What she asked. It is an important question. He rubbed his forehead. We are not doing this right now, he said. She shrugged and reached for the snow globe instead. She picked it up carefully, turned it over, and gave it a firm shake. White flakes burst to life inside, swirling around the tiny tree. Ava watched them rise. I used to have one like that, she said almost to herself. Lily perked up. You did? Ava nodded. My brother gave it to me when I moved out of my parents' house. It had a little mountain in it and a very ugly moose. I thought it was the best thing I had ever seen. Where is it? Lily asked. A shadow crossed Ava's features. At home, she said after a beat. In a box. I am not very good at unpacking certain things. Lily seemed to accept that without pushing. You should take it out, she said. They are more fun when you can shake them. Her tone was matter-of-fact. I will think about it, Ava said. The server reappeared with Lily's hot chocolate crown of whipped cream, melting at the edges, and a kid's menu with a few pictures to color. Lily thanked him and wrapped both hands around the warm mug the snow globe parked beside it like a companion. The three of them settled into a new shape around the table. Their plates had cooled slightly, the candle burned lower. At the bar, Mark turned on his stool, eyes narrowing as he took in the addition to their table. His gaze moved from Ava to Ethan to Lily, then back to Ava again. He lifted his glass and said something to the man beside him, grin twisting. He looked like he was preparing a thought he planned to deliver later. Near the television, the volume rose a notch as the news anchor's voice cut through the low music. Travel advisories have escalated across the metro area tonight. Officials are urging residents to stay indoors as visibility continues to drop. The camera cut to a shot of the interstate red and white lights crawling through a blur of white. The overhead lights in the copper lantern dipped once more, then came back a little weaker than before. Candles fluttered in their holders. A draft found its way through some unseen crack and brushed across Ethan's neck. Lily took a careful sip of her drink, then sighed contentedly. This is way better than movie night, she said. Do not tell Mrs. Green that, Ethan replied. Lily grinned and leaned into his arm. Her snow globe sat between them, flakes settling slowly, tiny world glowing in the reflection of the candle. Outside the glass, the real snow kept falling, rushing past the windows in thick, restless sheets. The next time the lights flickered, it was not a quick blink. They dimmed and held there a shade too dark, as if the whole room were taking a breath. Conversations stuttered. Forks hovered over plates. Someone laughed a little too loudly, trying to smooth it over. At the bar, the television volume nudged up again. The news anchor's tone stayed calm, but the footage behind her had changed. Highways disappeared into white. A stranded car sat crooked on a shoulder hazard lights, blinking faintly. Authorities are advising all residents to remain indoors, her voice carried into the dining room. Plows are working to keep up with the storm, but visibility is near zero in many areas. A server walked past with a tray of drinks that rattled more than they should have. Lily slurped the last bit of whipped cream off her hot chocolate and set the mug down with care. Looks like a snow globe, she said, nodding at the window. What does Ava ask? Outside, Lily said. Everything is blurry and floaty. Ethan followed her gaze. She was not wrong. The city beyond the glass had turned into layers of gray and white lights, smudged into soft halos. Only the nearest shapes had clear edges, and even those looked like they were being erased a little at a time. Except in this one, you do not get to put it back on the shelf when you are done, he said. Lily frowned, thinking this over. That would be a very big shelf, she decided. Ava smiled, her eyes still on the window. The manager of the copper lantern stepped into the center of the room. He clapped his hands once gently to get attention. Folks, he began, sorry to interrupt your meals. I just got off the phone with the city. The storm is officially upgraded. They are asking people not to drive unless it is an emergency. A murmur rippled through the tables. We are going to stay open as long as we have power, he went on. If anyone feels safer waiting it out here, you are welcome to. We have extra chairs and blankets in the back. We will put coffee on and do what we can. At one table, a woman lifted her phone. My babysitter, she said. She has to get home before the buses stop. At another, an older man in a wool cap shook his head. I am not driving in that, he muttered. I did enough of that in '78. The room began to shift from dinner to something else. People called ride shares only to frown when no cars were available. Couples leaned over screens together, scrolling weather maps. One family in the corner pulled their kids' jackets off the backs of chairs and checked zippers and hats. Ethan swallowed the last bite of his chicken without tasting it. His instincts had begun to hum under his skin. Lily watched it all with wide eyes. Are we staying here? She asked. Ibindi, she guessed. Maybe for a bit, Ethan said, until the streets are less crazy. She brightened. Overnight, she asked, like a hotel but with free bread. Not overnight, he said, hopefully. Ava folded her napkin, then unfolded it again. I can call a car for you, she said to Ethan, or for Lily at least. Maybe one of the four-wheel drive vans is still running. He shook his head. I am not putting her in a car with someone I do not know in this, he said. If we go, I am walking with her. Which I am not thrilled about either. Lily traced a finger along the base of the snow globe following the painted houses. Mrs. Green has flashlights and candles, she said. She gave me a lecture about not sticking my hand in a flame. Sounds like her, Ethan said. The lights overhead trembled once more. This time when they went out, they stayed out. For a moment, there was only the sound of people sucking in breath, a few startled laughs, a chair scraping. Then emergency fixtures along the walls glowed to life, casting the room in a muted red. Candles became the brightest points of light. The piano stopped mid-note. Well, Ava said quietly, that is festive. From the kitchen came clatters and a single voice calling, Everyone okay back there? The manager raised his hands again, now lit from below by the nearest centerpiece. All right, he said. Looks like we are on backup. We still have gas in the kitchen, so food is fine. Heat should hold. If anyone needs anything, talk to your server. We will make this as comfortable as we can. A server near the bar added, We have board games in the back, cards, a box of crayons. Lily perked up at the word crayons. Can I get some? She asked. Ethan hesitated. Sure, he said. As long as you stay where I can see you. She rolled her eyes, but the edge of her mouth curved. I am not going to vanish, she said. He opened his mouth and closed it again. The wrong images rushed in too quickly. Crayons will be right back, the server promised, already heading toward a side door. The manager moved from table to table, checking on people adjusting candles, promising more coffee. The murmur of the room settled into a different rhythm, less like a restaurant and more like a waiting room for a storm. A siren wailed somewhere outside, thin through the walls. Blue and red lights flashed briefly against the far window, turning the snow there into a wash of shifting color. Lily twisted in her chair, trying to see. Stay seated, Ethan said. I am just looking, she said. I mean it, he replied. She slumped back then, busied herself by lifting the snow globe and rolling it between her hands. You do not like storms, she said. No, he admitted, I really do not. Mom liked them, Lily said, not looking up. She said they made everything quiet. Ava's gaze shifted toward Ethan, then back to the tiny winter scene in the glass. She sounds like someone who saw the good in things, Ava said. She did, he said. The emergency lights hummed softly. The candles burned, lower wax pooling. A server brought a few extra tea lights and set one on their table, doubling the glow. Lily's attention kept drifting toward the front. Each time the door opened to let in a late guest or a blast of snow, she glanced over. Outside, the storm had gone from blurred to nearly solid. The restaurant sign swung on its metal bracket chains, creaking faintly. The server with the crayons returned and placed a small cup of broken pencils and wax sticks on the table, along with a kid's menu, printed with outlines of snowmen and trees. Here you go, he said. Artist supplies. Thank you, Lily said. She pulled the paper closer and began to draw a tongue poking out at one corner of her mouth in concentration. Ethan watched her for a moment. The curve of her shoulders, the way her hair fell forward when she hunched over the table. He let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. I can take her to the restroom if you want to call Mrs. Green again, Ava offered. Or just breathe for a minute. He shook his head. It is fine, he said. She is not leaving this table unless the building is on fire. Lily looked up. What if it is just a tiny fire, she asked. Then we will discuss, he said. She giggled and went back to coloring. Another 15 minutes passed. Dishes were cleared by flashlight and candle. More families surrendered to the idea of staying and asked for coffee refills. Someone found a battery-powered lantern and set it in the middle of the room, its soft white beam cutting through the red emergency glow. The snow outside did not pause. A pair of city workers in neon jackets entered, stamping snow from their boots. They conferred quietly with the manager near the bar, then disappeared again into the white. "Are we stuck here?" Lily whispered, as if saying it too loudly would make it true. "For a while, maybe," Ethan said. "There are worse places to be stuck." "Like school," she said. "Exactly." She finished coloring the snowman and pushed the paper toward Ava. "What do you think?" she asked. The snowman had uneven eyes and a very large scarf. The sky around him was scribbled in heavy blue. "I think he looks very warm," Ava said, "and maybe a little worried." "That is because he cannot see the ground," Lily said. "He does not know if he has feet." Ava laughed. It slipped out fast, then settled into a softer sound. "That is a valid concern," she said. The siren outside came again, closer this time. The flashing lights washed the windows in blue for a few seconds, then the color faded as the vehicle moved on. Lily twisted in her chair one more time. This time she stayed turned toward the front door, watching the way it rattled in its frame whenever the wind gusted. "I will be right back," she said. "Where are you going?" Ethan asked. "Nowhere," she said. "Just the front. I want to see." "You can see from here," he said. He said, "Get stom." "Not really," she answered. "The candles are in the way." He reached toward her, but she had already slid down from her chair, small boots thumping softly on the floor. "Lily." She looked back over her shoulder. "I am just going to the door," she said. 2 seconds. She darted between tables before he could decide between pulling her back and not making a scene in front of a room full of strangers. "I will get her," he told Ava, pushing his chair back. "I can watch her." Ava began half rising. He took a step away, then a server brushed past with a tray, forcing him to pause. The manager appeared at his elbow. "Mr. Cole, is it?" the man asked, slightly out of breath. "Yeah," Ethan said, eyes still tracking Lily's purple coat near the entrance. "We are getting some blankets from the basement," the manager said. "If your daughter gets cold or sleepy, let us know. We will set up a quieter corner for families." "Thank you," Ethan said. "I appreciate that." He turned back toward the front. For a moment he could not see her. The spot by the door was a cluster of silhouettes. Someone shrugged into a jacket. Another guest let a blast of air in while squeezing out into the storm. He caught a flash of purple near the glass, then lost it. "Lily," he called. No answer. He wove between tables, apology on his lips for every shoulder he bumped. The closer he got to the door, the colder the air felt, fingers of wind sneaking under it. At the window he could see the edge of the sidewalk before the world vanished into white. The outline of a parked car, the dark trunk of a tree. No small figure. Ava had followed, stopping just behind him. "Do you see her?" she asked. He scanned the room again, heart thudding in his ears. Their table, the bar, the path to the restrooms, the hostess stand. "Lily," he called again, louder. Conversations faltered, faces turned. "She was right here," he said to no one in particular. "She said she was going to the door." The hostess stepped out from behind her podium. "She walked up a second ago," she said. "I thought you were with her." Cold slid down his spine. He put his hand on the door handle. The metal felt like ice against his skin. "Ethan," Ava said. He swallowed. "She hates staying put," he said. "She likes to see things." He opened the door. Wind punched into the room sharp and fierce. It grabbed at his coat and rushed past his legs. Snow swirled in, stinging his face and cheeks before he could blink. Outside, the street had become a flat white plain. The shapes of cars were lumps in the drift. The tree and the sign pole were ghostly poles rising from the snow. The sound of the city was gone, stolen by the storm. "Lily," he shouted into the white. The name was torn from his mouth and flung away. He stepped out onto the mat boots meeting packed snow. The cold reached through his socks in an instant. Behind him, Ava grabbed the edge of the door to keep it from slamming. "I am coming with you," she said. He did not argue. He could not. He stepped forward again into the white that felt close enough to touch and far too large to hold in his mind. The cold closed around Ethan like a fist. In the doorway, the noise of the restaurant dropped away. Snow filled his vision in fast-moving streaks, as if someone had shaken the whole city like a toy. The white swallowed streetlights and signs. It swallowed sound. His breath vanished in front of him as soon as it left his mouth. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Lily." The name went out and disappeared. No echo, no answer. He took 3 steps forward. The snow came above his ankles already, not the dry powder of the afternoon, but a wet, heavy pack that caught at his boots. Wind pushed against his chest, stealing his breath. Tiny pellets of ice stung his cheeks. Behind him, the door bumped his shoulder. Ava had followed him out, and was using her body to keep it from slamming shut. Her hair whipped across her face. She pulled her coat tighter with one hand. "I cannot see anything," she said. She had to raise her voice for him to hear it. Where would she go? He turned his head from side to side, scanning the sidewalk. The outlines of parked cars were round shadows under the snow. The curb had lost its shape. Snow whirled past the entrance of the restaurant in a tight column. "She likes cars," he said. The words came out clipped. "She thinks they make good hiding spots." "Then we check the cars," Ava said, "one at a time." He moved toward the closest shape, a dark sedan half buried at the curb. Each step felt slower than it should have. Snow dragged at his shins, wind shoved at his back when he wanted to stand still and search, and shoved at his chest when he wanted to move forward. He braced his hand on the cold metal of the trunk, leaned down and scraped snow away from the bumper with his glove. He got a face full of ice for his effort, and nothing else. "Lily," he shouted again, voice breaking. He saw Rachel for a split second, then not Lily. Saw her in his memory, silhouetted by headlights, hair blown across her face, mouth words he could not hear over the crackle of a phone connection. The memory hit hard and fast. It took the strength out of his knees. Not again. He shoved the picture away and forced his focus back to the car, to the here and now, to the way the snow clung to the edges of the tire and piled in the wheel well. She could not have gone far, Ava called from behind him. She moved toward the next car boot, sliding a little on the icy sidewalk. Her breath came in short bursts. She kept one hand on the row of parked vehicles trailing along the surfaces so she would not lose her place. The storm filled the gaps between them. It roared in his ears. Fine crystals blew into his eyes, making them water and blur. "Check between them," Ethan said. "She is small. She could squeeze in anywhere." He dropped to one knee beside the sedan and pushed his glove under the frame, feeling for boots, for fabric, for anything warm and moving. His fingers found only packed ice. "Lily," he yelled louder, throat raw now. "Answer me." Wind yanked the word out of his mouth and scattered it. Ava coughed, choking on air that felt too sharp to swallow. She yelled too. "Lily, it is Ava. Say something, anything." Her voice broke on the last syllable. The storm swallowed her words as easily as it had his. A car rolled past slowly, tires spinning, engines straining. Headlights slid over them for a second, turning the snow into flying glitter. The driver hunched forward, eyes locked on the barely visible lane. He did not see them on the sidewalk, or if he did, he could not stop. Ethan staggered to the next car, an older station wagon, with a roof already crowned in white. The windows were opaque with frost. He pressed his face close to the side window and saw only his own blurred reflection. He moved around the back, bumper scraping snow away faster now, his hands numb despite the gloves. Panic had a taste metallic and thin, and it sat on his tongue. His chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. "Lily," he yelled again. "Lily, answer me, please." His voice cracked on the last word. He did not care who heard it. Ava coughed again and closed her eyes for a beat, as if willing them to adjust, then opened them wider, forcing herself to focus past her own fear. Where would a 7-year-old go, she thought? Not down the street, not with this wind, not across, not through this much snow. She would stay close. She would hug the building. She would crouch where the wind could not hit her face. "Look near the wheels," she shouted. "By the tires." Ethan dropped to his knees beside the next vehicle, an SUV with a higher frame. Snow soaked through his jeans at once. His gloves were useless now, stiff and wet. He stuck his bare hands into the drift, ignoring the shock, and pushed the snow aside. His fingers closed around packed ice, then nothing. At the next car over, Ava squinted against the snow that struck her lashes and cheeks. She wiped a wet sleeve across her face and leaned close to the vehicle, using its bulk to block some of the wind. The paint was darker under the snow, maybe blue, maybe black. The mirrors and handles were just bumps now. Snow had gathered in the gap between car and curb, creating a deep trough. She scanned the line where the car belly met the drift, looking for any shape that was not pure white. For a moment there was nothing. Then she saw it, a faint smudge of color near the rear wheel, small and bright against the snow. Pink, like bubblegum. It could have been trash. It could have been a mitten. "Ethan," she shouted, pointing. "Here." He did not answer, but she heard his boots crunching as he shifted direction. She crouched, heart hammering, and brushed at the pink patch with the back of her glove. Fabric appeared, plastic stitching, a small familiar pattern of stars. A mitten, a child-sized mitten. She dug faster, fingers burning. Her hand sank into the snow up to the wrist. She felt something solid beneath the surface, not metal, not ice. A curve of a shoulder, hair caught under a hood. She sucked in a breath that turned to ice in her lungs. "Lily," she said, voice dropping. "Lily, honey." The shape shifted. A small sound came from the drift, not quite a word more, a broken sob. Ethan dropped to the ground beside her. Between them, they clawed the snow away, pulling it back in armfuls until a small body appeared curled tight against the side of the car. Lily's purple coat was caked with frost. Snow clung to her lashes. Her cheeks were a too bright red. Her teeth chattered so hard her words came in fragments. "S is sorry," she whispered. Ethan held a hand over her face, without touching, as if reassuring himself that the breath he saw really belonged to her. "I have got you," he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "I have got you, bug. It is all right. It is all right. Look at me." Her eyes fluttered, then focused on him. Relief was so sharp it hurt. He slid his arms under her, lifting her out of the hole she had made in the snowbank. She was lighter than he remembered, or maybe he was just carrying everything at once, now the 3 years of what if and never again, and not her too. She gasped when the wind hit her face. Ava moved in immediately, unwinding her scarf and wrapping it around Lily's head and neck, tucking it close. "Keep her face covered," Ava shouted. "Not too tight. We need to get her inside." "Right," Ethan said. He tucked Lily against his chest, trying to wrap his coat around her as much as he could, sheltering her with his whole body. Her cold seeped through his clothes. His own heat bled out into the storm. A gust of wind pushed them sideways. He planted his feet and leaned into it. Snow piled against his legs, making each step feel like wading through wet cement. The entrance to the copper lantern was a smear of gold through the white, a rectangle of light that seemed both close and impossibly far. "Move," he told himself, "move." Ava stayed at his side, one hand on his arm to steady him. The other held out slightly to feel for any hidden curb or slick patch. Snow plastered her hair to her forehead. Her lashes were tipped in white. She did not slow. They reached the steps. The mat was half buried now. The door swung inward as soon as they were closed, servants' hands and strangers' hands reaching to pull it wide. Warm air hit Ethan like a wave. It smelled of hot food and damp wool and melted snow. He stumbled inside. His boots slid for a second on the wet floor. Someone caught his elbow. Another person took Ava's scarf and shook the snow free so it would not drip onto the crowd. Voices rose all at once. "What happened? Is she all right? Get them towels." Lily whimpered softly and tucked her face farther into his chest. The manager appeared in front of them, eyebrows pulled tight. "Back corner booth," he said, pointing. "By the kitchen. It is warmest there. We have blankets. Move. Please let them through." The crowd parted. Ethan let himself be guided. Every sense narrowed down to the weight in his arms, the tiny movements of Lily's chest against his ribs. They reached the booth. It was half hidden from the main dining room by a low partition. A stack of folded blankets sat on the bench already waiting. "Set her down," the manager said. "We will wrap her up." Ethan eased Lily onto the padded seat, but did not let go of her completely. His hands stayed at her sides, as if gravity were suddenly untrustworthy. Her lips were pale at the edges, her eyelashes clumped together in wet spikes. The snow melting on her skin made her hair cling to her forehead in dark streaks. Ava grabbed the nearest blanket and shook it open. She lay it over Lily, then another on top of that. A server rushed in with a third thicker one that smelled faintly of cedar from storage. Lily made a soft sound and tried to burrow deeper. Her fingers were still clenched around something, the snow globe. It sat half in her hand, half on the bench glass, fogged with the change in temperature. A hairline crack traced along the base, a thin lightning mark in the painted village. Ava gently pried Lily's fingers open enough to move it out of the way, setting it on the table, where it caught the candlelight in fractured reflections. A few loose flakes inside drifted down slow and lazy. "Do we need an ambulance?" someone asked. "We will call if she does not warm up," the manager answered. "Right now she is talking and moving. That is a good sign." Lily's teeth clicked together. "I am still okay." Ethan sat on the edge of the seat, one hip hanging off, and pulled her into his lap, blankets and all. He wrapped his arms around her, adding his body as one more layer. "You scared me," he said into her hair. "I wanted to see," she replied, voice muffled. "You saw enough," he said. Her small hand found the front of his shirt and held on. Ava slid into the booth beside them without asking. Her own clothes were damp and chilled. Her fingers tingled with returning feeling, where the cold had bitten into them. She ignored it. "Can I get you both something hot?" the manager asked. "Tea," Ava said. "Something sweet for her when she can drink it." "Not yet. Let her stop shaking first." He nodded and moved away, already calling instructions toward the kitchen. Around them, the restaurant reorganized itself. Staff pushed tables together to form longer rows. Someone carried in a crate of extra candles from the back. Parents coaxed restless kids into jackets they would not be wearing outside. The low hum of concern settled into something steadier, a communal decision to wait together. Ethan focused on Lily's breathing. In, out, in, out. Each breath that did not hitch or falter loosened a knot in his chest. He became aware after a while of warmth pressed along his side. Ava sitting close, her shoulder touching his, her arm, resting lightly along the back of the booth behind him. She had not spoken in several minutes. She did not have to. Snow pattered faintly against the restaurant windows, a softer sound now that they were on the inside listening out. In the corner booth, wrapped in blankets and surrounded by the faint smell of kitchen spices and melted ice, 3 people who had been strangers at the start of the evening sat close enough to feel each other breathe. Steam curled up from the mugs when they arrived. The server set them down carefully, one in front of Ethan, tea the color of amber, one in front of Ava, darker, with a slice of lemon floating on top. One smaller cup for Lily, hot chocolate no longer piled with whipped cream, just a thin froth. "Let it cool a little," Ava said. "Your mouth has been through enough tonight." Lily sniffed the drink and drew the blankets closer to her chin. "I am not cold anymore," she said, though her voice still quivered on certain consonants. Ethan smoothed her damp hair back from her forehead. The purple of her coat had darkened now that the ice had melted. The blanket underneath her was wet at the edges. "We will get you into a dry jacket once we find one," he said. "Do we have one?" she asked. "I am sure someone has something," he said. "Worst case, I will wear the wet one." She gave him a look that was half exasperation, half comforted. "You would get sick," she said. "I am very sturdy," he said. "He is very stubborn," Ava added. Lily smiled faintly. Her color was returning, the bright red giving way to a healthier pink. Her eyes were heavy with the strain of the last half hour, but clear. Around them, the restaurant had settled into a strange calm. The main lights stayed dark. Emergency strips and candles turned faces into soft shapes. People arranged themselves in clusters, some at tables, some sitting on the floor with backs against walls. A group of children had claimed a section near the bar and were playing some game with sugar packets and coasters. The storm still pressed against the windows, but its roar had faded inside these walls into a steady whisper. "Do things like this happen a lot here?" Ava asked, looking toward the glass. "Not this bad," Ethan said. "Not in the city anyway. Sometimes in the foothills you get stuck for a day or two. Here it is usually plows and salt and life goes on." "Tonight it decided to be dramatic," she said. Tonight he agreed. He lifted his tea. The cup was too hot to hold from the sides, so he wrapped in his hands around the handle and took a cautious sip. The heat slid down into his chest, scraping the ice from his lungs. Lily watched his throat move, then looked at her own cup. "I am sorry I went outside," she said. Her tone had changed. The defiance from earlier had drained out, leaving something small and tight in its place. He set the mug down. "I know," he said. "I just wanted to see," she said. "It looked so cool through the glass, like the world was turning into a cloud." "I get that," he said. "It does look cool." He thought for a moment. "When you were little, he said you would crawl toward every single thing that was shiny or loud or smelled interesting. We had to put chairs in front of the oven. You were not afraid of hot or sharp or anything." "I still am not," she said. "I know," he replied. "That is kind of the problem." Her fingers played with the edge of the blanket. "Mom liked storms," she said. "She would make cocoa, and we would sit at the window, and she would tell me stories." He could see it as she spoke it. Rachel with her feet up on the old coffee table, a mug between her hands, hair pulled into a loose knot on top of her head. Lily on the couch under a quilt, eyes wide. Outside rain or snow or hail beating on the glass. The memory came with sound and taste, and the faint smell of laundry detergent. It brought warmth, and then quickly the hollow that followed. She did, he said. She liked to watch them from inside where it was safe. He let his hand rest lightly on Lily's shoulder. "You are not in trouble," he added. "Not tonight. You are alive, and that is all I care about. But next time you want to see something, you drag me with you, even if I am being a coward." "You are not a coward," she said. He did not answer. Ava quietly wrapped her hands around her own mug. The lemon slice bumped against porcelain when she tilted the cup. "She sounds brave," Ava said. "Your mom." "She was," Lily said. As Ethan corrected the words slipping out before he could adjust it. "In every story you tell. In every time you remember what she would have done." Lily thought that over, then nodded once as if she could accept that version of present tense. "She would have said that going outside alone was not very smart," Lily added. "I am on her side in this," he said. Lily yawned and burrowed deeper into the blankets, nestling more firmly into his lap. Her head found its place in the hollow under his chin. Her hair still smelled faintly of the peach shampoo she spilled half the time. Within a minute, her eyelashes began to slow. Her breathing evened out each inhale, a soft brush against his chest. Ethan kept one hand on her back, the other on her arm, as if the storm might somehow reach through the walls and pull her away if he was not careful. The booth was not big enough for 3 adults, but it was just enough for 2 adults and 1 child, who had melted into sleep. Ava shifted slightly to give him more room, her hip pressed against his, her shoulder warm along his arm. She reached forward and adjusted the blankets, tucking them up around Lily's ears. "She is out," Ava whispered. Adrenaline crash, he said quietly. He stared at the table for a moment. The snow globe sat near the candle, its crack catching the light in a thin, bright line. The tiny bench inside faced the tiny tree. The flakes had mostly settled to the painted ground. Ava followed his gaze. "I am sorry about that," she said. "What?" "The crack," she said. "I think it happened when I grabbed it. Or when we were carrying her." "Oh," he said. "That." He looked at the line across the base. "It is fine," he added. "I can fix it. It has survived worse." He did not know if that last part was true, but it felt true. "How long have you had it?" she asked. He shifted carefully so as not to jostle Lily. "Rachel bought it at one of those holiday markets downtown," he said. "She said every family needs something cheesy for Christmas. She loved the way the snow looked when you shook it. Lily was 4. She would shake it until her arms hurt." Ava smiled. "I get it," she said, "the appeal. Rachel said it was like holding a storm you could control," he went on. "You put it on the shelf, pick it up when you want, set it down when you do not." His eyes stayed on the globe. "I liked that idea," he said, "being able to put things down." Ava watched him. His face had changed since they first sat. Lines she had not noticed earlier deepened at the corners of his mouth and eyes. The stiffness he carried was still there, but it was layered now with something more open, something tired. "Did you work a lot during storms?" she asked. He nodded. "Road crews inspections, making sure new structures held up. We used to laugh about it. Rachel would say she was a storm widow for the season. The word widow hung out there heavy and then rolled back in on itself. She probably would not love how that joke aged," he added, voice dry. Ava let the silence sit for a breath, then too. "I used to be the one trying to make jokes," she said finally, "before I got this job, before Denver. My brother was the one who liked storms. He lived for the ski reports. If there was fresh powder, he found it." She wove her fingers through the handle of her cup knuckles, pale. "He died in one," she said. "Storm, I mean. Went out anyway. Thought he knew the mountain better than the weather service did. He was wrong." Her eyes stayed on the lemon slice as it spun slowly in the tea. "After that, my mother could not watch the snow." She continued. "She would close the curtains, act like it was not happening. The house would feel like a box. I started staying late at work just to avoid it." Ethan listened. The hum of the room faded behind the words like a radio turning down. "Did you go to the mountain after?" he asked. Once she said. "For his things, his board, his boots." The patrol guy handed me his goggles and said something like, "At least he died doing what he loved." She laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "I wanted to throw them at his head," she said. "The goggles, not my brother." He watched the way her mouth tightened when she said it. "I am sorry," he said. "Me too," she answered. She picked at the edge of her bracelet. The bent clasp caught on her nail. "And then years later I scheduled a winter wedding," she said. "Like an idiot." "That does not sound idiotic," he said. "It sounds like tempting fate," she replied. "White dress, white aisle snow outside. Very poetic. My fiancé and I booked a lodge in the foothills, sent out matching invites, hired a photographer who specialized in couples throwing snow at each other." Her lips twitched. 3 days before the ceremony, he told me he was in love with my best friend," she said. They had been together for a while, long enough to have favorite restaurants. Ethan inhaled. He waited until 3 days before he asked. "He said he had tried to ignore it," she said, as if that made him noble. She lifted her cup as if it were a prop in a story. "My father wanted to sue the venue for emotional damages," she added. "My mother wanted me to move home. I decided the smartest thing to do was work until I forgot what planning a wedding felt like." "Did it work?" he asked. "Mostly," she said. "Except on days like today when the sky looks exactly like the day I picked out in the brochure." She set the cup down. The ceramic clicked softly against the wood. "I am better at picking campaigns than men," she said. "Or so my team tells me." Ethan considered this. "How are you with kids who run into storms?" he asked. She looked at Lily, asleep against him, face now relaxed. "I follow them," she said. "Apparently." "You did not have to," he said. "I did," she replied. "You may disagree, but I do not. I know what it looks like when somebody does not come back from a storm. I was not going to stand and watch that happen twice in one life. He turned his head and met her eyes. Thank you, he said. It sounded too small, but it was what he had. She accepted it with a slight nod. For a while they sat in a quiet that felt less like absence and more like shared space. The restaurant around them buzzed softly. A child laughed somewhere near the bar. Cards flicked on a table. Someone sang half a verse of a carol under their breath before stopping. Lily shifted, then stilled. Her hand slid out from under the blanket and fell against Ava's leg, fingers brushing her jeans. Ava glanced down, then rested her own hand lightly on Lily's for a moment, palm warm against small, chilled knuckles. It was a small contact, but Ethan saw it. The sight twisted something in his chest and loosened something else. You are very calm with her, he said. She is very clear, Ava replied. Kids are like that. They let you know what they want. Adults are the complicated ones. Tell me about it, he muttered. She smiled. She thinks you are scared, Ava said. Of tonight, of storms, of this whole thing. She is not wrong, he said. I have been terrified for 3 years. I just learned how to do dishes and drive and show up to parent-teacher meetings at the same time. What are you most afraid of? She asked. He looked at the snow globe, at the tiny world held in glass, at the crack along its base. Losing her, he said simply, and losing the part of me that remembers Rachel Wright. That is 2 answers, but they are tangled. He cleared his throat. And you, he asked, what are you most afraid of? She traced the circle in a drop of condensation on the table. Letting someone close enough to hurt me the way I have already been hurt, she said, and realizing I have changed so much, trying not to be hurt, that I'm not myself anymore. He let out a breath. We make a fun pair, he said. A real party, she said. They shared a look that held a small wry understanding in it. In the main room, the manager spoke briefly with a pair of late arrivals, then moved toward the bar. He caught sight of Ava and Ethan in the corner, his gaze lingering in a way that said he was glad the child was safe, but already thinking ahead to the logistics of housing this many people for the night. At the bar, Mark watched the same scene, his face half lit by the lantern on the counter. His lips curved, though his eyes did not. He turned back to his colleagues, said something that made one of them chuckle, and then lifted his glass again, his mind clearly shifting toward a different kind of plan. In the corner booth, Ethan and Ava stayed close, without speaking, listening to the soft clatter of cups and the distant rush of the storm that now sounded smaller than it had outside. Lily's steady breathing filled the space between words, a quiet rhythm that anchored them, while the world beyond the windows went on erasing its own edges. The night stretched into something that did not feel like a regular dinner anymore. Staff moved in quiet loops between tables, with coffee pots and plates of whatever the kitchen could still produce without full power. Someone had found a speaker that ran on batteries and put on a playlist of older songs low enough that it did not fight with the sound of voices. Lily slept through all of it. Her head was heavy against Ethan's chest, breath warm through his shirt. The blankets rustled each time she shifted. His arms had gone half numb from holding her, but he did not adjust. The weight was proof. Ava sat close, not quite touching him. Now her hands folded around the cooled ceramic of her mug. Her bracelet had slipped halfway down her forearm. The bent clasp caught the candlelight each time she moved. At the bar, Mark watched them. He rolled the stem of his glass between his fingers, liquid catching the reflection from the lantern on the counter. One of his colleagues spoke to him, some joke about being snowed in with the boss. Mark answered with a sound that might have been a laugh. His eyes stayed on the corner booth. Finally, he tipped his drink back, finished what was left, and set the glass down. The base made a soft tap against the polished wood. He brushed invisible lint from his sleeve and picked up 2 paper cups. The bartender slid toward him. Peace offerings, the bartender said. Something like that, Mark replied. He walked across the room with the easy confidence of someone used to owning whatever space he stepped into. People shifted their knees to let him pass. A few nodded in polite recognition. He gave small smiles that did not quite touch his eyes. When he reached the corner booth, his gaze did a quick sweep. Lily asleep, wrapped in blankets. Ethan holding her shoulders hunched, eyes shadowed. Ava, tired hair slightly damp around her temples, face bare of the careful expressions she wore in the office. Thought you two might need these, Mark said. He set 1 cup on the table in front of Ava. It smelled like black coffee with too much sugar. The other he placed within reach of Ethan. Ava straightened. A tiny frown appeared between her eyebrows. Mark, she said, you did not have to do that. Company perk, he said. The last of the fresh brew hand delivered. Perks of being stuck with the agency crew. Ethan shifted his grip on Lily, careful not to jostle her. His eyes flicked from the cup to Mark's face. Thanks, Ethan said, uncertain. You are welcome, Mark replied. Figured it was the least I could do for our creative director and her guest. He put a slight pause before the last word, letting it hang. Ava did not pick up the cup. "This is Ethan," she said. "Ethan, this is Mark Hastings. We work together." "Nice to meet you, Ethan," Mark said. He offered his hand. Ethan did not quite have a free one. He managed to lift his fingers briefly in a half wave. "Likewise," Ethan said. "Quite a night for a first date," Mark added. "You really know how to pick them, Ava." She gave him a thin look. "We did not exactly pick the weather," she said. "No," he agreed. "Although someone upstairs might be a fan of drama. Blizzard's power outages lost children. Very cinematic." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We found her," he said. "That is what matters." "Of course," Mark said quickly. "Glad to see that. Brave kid, brave dad." The compliment rang hollow. He put one hand on the back of the spare chair next to the booth. "Mind if I join you for a minute?" he asked. "Yes," Ava said. She said it without thinking. The word came out clean without apology. Mark blinked, then laughed as if she had made a joke. "I will not stay long," he said. "Just wanted to check in. We are all stuck in here together after all." He pulled the chair closer and sat angling his body so he faced the booth. He leaned back, casual, ankle resting on knee, one elbow draped over the chair back. Ava's shoulders stiffened. "How is everything over in the land of kitchen duty?" she asked. "Still enough food to keep the masses calm?" "For a while," he replied. "The staff is being very accommodating. I offered to run a crisis communication piece for them when this is over, free of charge, of course." "Of course," she said. He smiled, then looked at Ethan again as if assessing. "So," he said, "what line of work did you say you are in?" "I did not," Ethan said, "but I fix things. Handyman." "Right," Mark said. "Local hero, pipes, wires, all that." He tapped the paper cup in front of Ethan with one finger. "Good to have those skills," he went on. "Very grounded." "Helps pay the rent," Ethan said. "Keeps the lights on." "Important job," Mark said, "especially when the grid is in such a fragile mood." He gestured up with the cup indicating the still dark ceiling. Ava watched him carefully. There was a tone he used when he spoke to certain vendors, a mix of politeness and dismissal, like he was already halfway out of the conversation. She heard it creeping in now. "Mark," she said, "what are you doing over here?" "Bringing coffee," he said. "Checking on my team." "This is a lot even for you. Getting trapped with a client is one thing. Getting trapped with a blind date and his kid is another." His gaze slid to Lily for a moment, then back up. Ethan's grip tightened around his daughter unconsciously. "She is not a problem," he said. "I did not say she was," Mark replied, just pointing out the obvious. "Most people would have rescheduled. New number, new excuse, something like that." "I do not reschedule because of weather," Ava said. She was trying to keep the conversation from going where she could feel it wanting to go. Mark did not seem interested in cooperating. He took a sip of his own coffee and smacked his lips softly. Besides, he continued eyes on Ethan now. "This is a good story for the program." "Shows commitment." "Program?" Ethan asked. He frowned. Mark lifted his brows as if surprised. Ava did not mention, he said. "Mention what Ethan asked." Mark looked at Ava. "You did not tell him," he said in a tone he might use if she had forgotten to CC a client on an important email. "There is nothing to tell," she said. He gave a small apologetic shrug in Ethan's direction. "We have this initiative at the agency," he said. "Corporate outreach. Executives spend time with people from different parts of the community. Builds empathy. Makes for good copy in the annual report." He smiled. "Win-win," he said. "We call it the Neighbor Table Program. Cute name, right?" Ethan stared at him. "I do not understand," he said slowly. Ava was one of the volunteers, Mark went on, as if explaining a clever idea at a pitch meeting. Have dinner with someone outside the usual circle, listen to their story, that kind of thing. Somebody gets a nice night out, we get to talk about being connected to real people. Our HR team loves it. He said real people like it was a category separate from the one he and Ava were part of. Ava's hand closed around her coffee cup. The cardboard crinkled with the pressure. "That is not what this is," she said. Mark stopped. Ethan's shoulders had gone very still. His gaze had dropped to the table, then to the snow globe. The hairline crack along the base drew his eye like a line on a map. "So I am part of an initiative," he said quietly. Mark laughed lightly. "Do not take it the wrong way," he said. "It is a compliment. We do not pick just anyone. You fit the profile. Hard-working, salt of the earth, all that. Very photogenic. And you have a kid which is great for tugging heartstrings." He reached out and clapped Ethan on the shoulder, friendly on the surface, a little too hard underneath. Ethan flinched almost imperceptibly. Mark, Ava said again, sharper now, "That is enough." He glanced at her, surprised by the edge in her voice. "Come on," he said. "I am just giving him context. Nobody likes to be kept in the dark." "There is no program," Ava said. We have a charity committee, we have donation drives. We do not have whatever story you are selling right now. This is not that. His smile faded around the edges. You really going to pretend this is just a casual date? He asked. You here with him? He nodded at Ethan. On Christmas Eve. She did not answer. Silence pooled between them. Ethan carefully shifted Lily in his lap. He slid his arm out from under her and eased her so she rested against the back of the booth, instead still wrapped in blankets. Her head lolled to one side, lips parted, breathing slow and steady. He stood up. Ethan Ava said. It is fine, he said. His voice was flat. It is not, she replied. He stepped out of the booth. Thank you for the coffee, he said to Mark. And for the context. I appreciate the clarity. Do not be like that, Mark said. There is no shame in it. Everyone needs a hand now and then. I did not ask for one, Ethan said. His eyes met Ava's. For the first time that night there was distance in them that had nothing to do with where they sat. I need to move her somewhere quieter, he said. She should sleep. There is room here, Savidius said. I will find another corner, he said. You should enjoy your outreach or whatever this is supposed to be. The last words carried more heat than the rest. He reached down and lifted Lily again, gentle in the way his hands fit around her. She made a small sound and tucked her face against his neck. He adjusted the blankets so they covered her feet and shoulders. Ethan Ava said, What were you going to say? He asked. That you did not know he would phrase it like that. That this is all a misunderstanding. It is, she said. I am too tired for misunderstandings, he replied. He turned and stepped out from the booth, moving past Mark without looking at him. People shifted their chairs to give him room. The manager at the bar gestured toward a booth on the other side of the room, one near an interior wall away from the draft of the door. Ethan nodded in thanks and went there, his back already to Ava. He settled Lily in the new booth, arranging blankets with careful hands, his body forming a wall between her and the rest of the restaurant. Ava watched him go. Her chest felt tight as if the air in the room had thinned. Mark exhaled. You are welcome, he said. She turned her head slowly. For what she asked. For keeping you from making a mistake, he said. You are Ava Bennett. You drive million-dollar campaigns. You present to boards. You do not stay up all night in a blackout restaurant with a handyman from across town and his kid. Her jaw clenched. You have no idea what I do or do not do, she said. I know you, he replied. We have worked together for 5 years. I have watched you break yourself for clients who barely deserve your time. You do not belong here. Here where she asked. In this restaurant, in this city, in this booth. With him, Mark said plainly. The words landed like stones. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the table. If you are trying to insult him to protect me, you are failing at both, she said. He smiled, small and lacking any real humor. I am trying to remind you of the world you actually live in, he said. Because he is not part of it. Tonight is a snow day. It does not count. When this melts, you will be back in the office, and he will be back under someone's sink. That is reality. She felt something inside her snap, a quiet break like glass under too much pressure. Get away from my table, she said. The calm in her voice surprised even her. He blinked. Ava, he began. Now, she said. For a moment, he just looked at her, weighing the line he had crossed. Then he pushed his chair back and stood. You are overreacting, he said. Maybe, she replied. I would rather overreact than sit here while you talk about people like they are bullet points in a deck. He gave a slight shrug, as if to say she would calm down later. Think about it, he said. When you are not trapped in here with a child who almost froze to death and a man you felt sorry for on a bad night. Her mouth tightened. I did not feel sorry for him, she said. That is your thing, projecting pity and calling it concern. He smiled again, thin as paper. I will see you on Tuesday, he said, assuming the roads are clear. He walked back to the bar, shoulders loose, as if the conversation were nothing more than a minor disagreement over strategy. Ava watched his back until he blended into the cluster of people around the lantern. Her coffee sat untouched, the surface now cool and still. Across the room, Ethan sat with his arm along the back of the booth, eyes on the wall, Lily's head resting against his side. From where she sat, she could not see his face clearly, only the set of his shoulders, the way his hand kept adjusting the blanket even when it did not need adjusting. The distance between their booths was not much in feet. In feeling, it felt wider than the storm outside. The room grew quieter as the hours slipped past. Coffee was replaced by water and tea. The staff dimmed what little light they could control, trying to coax children into sleep. Someone in the back hummed tunelessly while stacking plates. The storm pushed on against the walls, patient and unbothered. Ava stayed in the corner booth alone now. Her coffee had gone cold. She turned the cup slowly, watching a ring of liquid climb the sides and slide back down. Her bracelet caught and released the candlelight with each movement. Across the room, Ethan was a still shape with Lily curled against him. From this angle she could see his profile, the line of his nose, the hollow beneath his cheekbone. His eyes were on nothing and everything at once. She wanted to walk over. She did not. The last look he had given her sat between them like a closed door. At some point her own eyes slid shut, just for a moment. The hum of voices blurred into a soft, formless sound. A small tug at her sleeve pulled her back. She opened her eyes to find Lily standing beside the booth. The girl's hair stuck up in strange angles, flattened on one side from sleep. The blankets had slipped from her shoulders and trailed behind her like a small cape. One sock was half off her heel. "How did you get here?" Ava asked, voice low. "See it, voice low?" "I walked," Lily said. Her tone held the obvious answer. There was a faint wobble to it from tiredness. Ava glanced toward the other booth. Ethan sat alone now. The blankets were still piled there, but the space next to him was empty. His head rested against the wall, eyes closed. His hand was draped over the back of the seat, fingers curled. "Your dad is going to panic when he wakes up, and you are not there," Ava said. "He is not asleep," Lily replied. "He is pretend asleep. That is how he is when he is sad and does not want me to see." Ava followed Lily's gaze. From across the room, Ethan did look almost too still. "You made him sad," Lily added. There was no accusation in the words, only observation. Ava swallowed. "I know," she said. "I did not mean to. Someone said something that was not true, and I did not stop it fast enough." "Why not?" Lily asked. "Because sometimes grown-ups freeze," Ava said. "Like when you step in a puddle you did not see, and you stand there a second before you move." "That is a bad metaphor," Lily said. Ava let out a short, surprised laugh. "You are not wrong," she said. Lily climbed into the booth without asking and scooted until she sat opposite Ava. She pulled her knees up under the blanket, small toes flexing in the loose sock. The snow globe was still on the table from earlier where Ava had set it after making room in the other booth. Now in this corner, it looked like it belonged to some other version of the evening. Lily pushed it closer to Ava. "You can hold it," she said. "I am taking a break from carrying things in storms." Ava wrapped her hands around the globe. It was cool to the touch, heavier than it looked. The crack along the base was more visible at this distance, a thin, pale line through the painted village. "I am sorry about the crack," Ava said again. "I told you," Lily replied. "My dad can fix anything. He will fix that too. He is like glue." She rested her chin on her knees. "He thinks he is broken," she said after a moment. The truth of it sat between them. "He told you that?" Ava asked. "Not with words," Lily said. "He does not like that word. But I can tell. Sometimes he looks at the picture of Mom, and he gets this look like he is in a different room. He thinks there is only one spot for love, and it is taken." Ava let her thumb drift along the curve of the glass. "What about you?" she asked. "What do you think?" Lily considered the question seriously. "I think he still loves her," she said. "I think he always will. But I do not think love is a chair that only one person can sit in. I think it is more like a couch." Her brows furrowed. "A big couch," she clarified. Ava bit back a smile. "That is a very specific piece of furniture," she said. "Mrs. Green has a small couch," Lily said. "There is only room for 2 people. When a third person sits, it is weird. You feel squished. But our couch was big. I could lie across it, and Mom could still sit, and sometimes Dad sat on the floor and leaned on it. So, that is my metaphor. It is better than yours." "It is," Ava agreed. Lily reached for the snow globe and tapped the glass lightly. "You are broken too," she said. Ava stilled. Lily did not look at her while she said it. Her eyes stayed on the tiny scene inside the globe on the bench, and the tree, and the painted houses. "You can tell?" Ava asked. "Yes," Lily said. "Your eyes are tired even when you are not sleepy. And you look at Dad like you want to say something, but then your mouth stays shut. That is how he looks at nice things." Ava set the globe back down carefully. "You are very observant," she said. "I am 7," Lily said. "My job is to watch grown-ups be weird." "Fair," Ava said. Lily shifted, pulling the blanket more tightly around her shoulders. "I was scared," she said. "Out there." Her voice had gone small again. "I know," Ava said. "You look scared too," Lily added. "I was," Ava said. "Very, but you still came," Lily said. "That means something." "What do you think it means?" Ava asked. Lily shrugged, a small lift of one shoulder. "That you are not as broken as you think," she said. "Broken people do not usually run into storms. They stay on the couch." "You really like this couch metaphor," Ava said. "It works," Lily said. She traced the crack on the base of the snow globe with one fingertip. "When my toys break, Dad does not throw them away," she went on. "He gets this little bottle of glue, and he sits at the table, and he sticks the pieces back together. Sometimes there is still a line where it cracked. He says that is just where the toy remembers it got fixed." Ava looked at her. Where it remembers it got fixed, she repeated. Lily nodded. I think people are like that too, she said. Some people remember the breaking more. Some people remember the fixing more. Which one are you? Ava asked. I am 7, Lily said. I remember both. Ava felt something in her chest shift, a tightness easing. She studied the crack in the snow globe again. Under the candlelight, it did not look ugly. It caught the glow and bent it, adding an extra streak of brightness where the glass had once been whole. I have a broken thing too, Ava said. Well, more than one, but one I wear. She turned her wrist and showed Lily the bracelet. Up close, it was easier to see the imperfection. The chain had a weak point near the clasp, a place where the links did not quite match. My brother gave it to me, she said. A long time ago. It broke once when I fell. I pushed the pieces together so it would not fall off, but I never had it fixed properly. Why not? Lily asked. Because part of me thought if I fixed it, I was saying everything else was fixed too, Ava answered, and that did not feel true. Lily scrunched her nose. That is a silly reason, she said. I know, Ava said. She turned the bracelet back around, hiding the weak spot under her wrist. We are silly like that, she added. Adults. You should let my dad fix it, Lily said. He is good with tiny things. Once he fixed the leg on my unicorn figurine. It still stands even though it snapped off right at the hoof. That is impressive. It is very small. That is impressive, Ava said. He likes fixing things, Lily said. It makes him feel useful. Sometimes when he cannot fix big things, he fixes lots of small things. Then he feels like the world still makes sense. Ava leaned back against the seat. What about things that are not made of plastic or metal? She asked. What about hearts? Lily thought about it. Hearts are just squishy machines, she said. They get tired and they need rest, and sometimes they skip a beat. But if you keep ignoring them, they get mad. Do they? Ava said. Yes, Lily said. That is science. That is science. Got it, Ava said. Lily lowered her voice, glancing once toward the other booth. Dad thinks nobody will ever love him like Mom did, she said. He thinks maybe nobody should. Ava swallowed. Why do you think that? She asked. Because he looks guilty when he smiles too much, Lily said. Like he is doing something wrong. He does not say it, but I can tell. She looked up, gray eyes steady. I do not think it is wrong if he smiles, she said, or if he likes you. Ava felt her throat tighten. You think he likes me? She said. He came here, Lily said. He put on the good shirt. He let you see his nervous laugh. He never does that on purpose. Ava let out a breath through her nose. I like him, she said quietly. I did not expect to. I did not want to. But I do. Lily's expression did not change much, but something in her relaxed. Good, she said. He needs someone who can fix their own broken parts and help with his. Ava smiled, soft and a little helpless. I do not know how good I am at fixing my own, she said. You came into the storm, Lily said again. That is a start. She yawned, jaw-cracking eyes filling with sudden tears from the stretch. The blanket slipped, and she pulled it back up. You should tell him, Lily added, smaller now. That I like him, Ava asked. Yes, Lily said. And that you did not do a charity program. He will believe you if you sound like you mean it. Ava traced a finger along a knot in the wood of the table. I did not know Mark was going to say those things, she said, but I should have shut it down sooner. That is on me. You can still fix it, Lily replied. Some things do not get fixed, Ava said. Lily shook her head. Maybe not, she said, but some things do, and some things are only cracked, not smashed. That is different. She slid off the booth blankets, dragging. I need to go back before he wakes up and gets scared, she said. He has had enough scared tonight. Ava reached out and straightened the blanket so it would not trip her. Thank you for talking to me, Ava said. You are welcome, Lily said. She took a step, then paused. One more thing, she said without turning. Yes, Ava asked. When you look at him now, Lily said, do not look like you feel sorry for him. Look like you see him. Ava sat very still. I can do that, she said. Lily nodded as if this satisfied some internal checklist and patted away across the floor blanket, just barely clearing her heels. She wove through tables with the practiced ease of a child who had grown up in small spaces full of furniture and grown-up legs. Ava watched her reach the other booth. Ethan's eyes opened before Lily touched him. He sat up, a little alarm flashing across his face, then softened when he saw who it was. Lily climbed back into the seat beside him, curling under his arm as if she had never moved. He said something low. Lily answered, gesturing vaguely toward the other side of the room. Ava could not hear the words, but she saw the moment when Ethan's gaze followed the motion and met hers. She did not look away this time. She did not fill her face with apology or pity. She let him see what was actually there. Tiredness, fear, relief. and something else that had grown in the space between sirens and snow and shared stories. For a heartbeat, his expression stayed guarded. Then slowly his shoulders dropped half an inch. His hand tightened around Lily's like anchoring himself, but his eyes did not turn away. The storm tapped against the windows. The candles burned lower. In the dim restaurant filled with strangers, the space between two booths felt a little less impossible. By the time the sky began to lighten, the storm had lost some of its voice. The windows at the Copper Lantern were still filmed with frost, but the snow no longer flung itself sideways. It drifted now slower and softer, like feathers after a pillow fight. The emergency lights hummed softly. The candles were mostly stubs. People were starting to stir. A little boy near the bar woke with his cheek stuck to his father's jacket. Someone yawned so wide their jaw popped. Chairs scraped as a few guests stood to stretch. From outside came a new sound, low and mechanical like a growl. Ava looked up. Through a clear patch on the window, she could see orange beacon lights slide past, casting moving bands of color on the walls. A snowplow crawled along the street, pushing white into higher walls along the curb. Behind it, the vague shape of a bus eased by tires grinding over packed snow. "Looks like the cavalry," the manager said as he walked past, his voice rough from a night of talking. He stopped at their table. "We just got an update," he said. "Main roads are opening. City Transit is going to start running a limited schedule. Once we get a little more light, people can head out if they feel safe." "Thank you," Ava said. "Thank you for being patient," he replied. "It is not every night we turn into a dormitory." He moved on to the next table, repeating some version of the same message. Ava wrapped her hands around an empty mug. She had stopped drinking hours ago, but the ghost of heat in the ceramic felt like something to hold on to. Across the room, Ethan sat upright now. Lily had rolled sideways during the night and ended up with her head in his lap and her feet pressed into the back of the booth. He gently moved her feet to the cushion and brushed hair away from her face. She blinked awake, confused for a second, then smiled when she remembered where she was. "Morning," she mumbled. "Morning," he said. "Is it still Christmas Eve?" she asked. "Technically," he said. "Almost not." She sat up, rubbing her eyes with balled fists. "I had a dream," she said. "We lived inside the snow globe." "Sound drafty," he replied. She slid out of the booth and stretched blankets still clinging to one shoulder. When she spotted the snow globe on the table at Ava's side of the room, she lit up. "My storm," she said. Ethan watched her cross the restaurant. Every few steps she glanced back as if checking he was still there. When she reached the other booth, she climbed in beside Ava like she had done it 100 times. Up close, Ava could see that Lily's cheeks had settled into their usual color. The shaking was gone. Only a faint tiredness lingered around her eyes. "I borrowed you," Lily said to Ava. "I hope that is okay." Ava smiled. "It is," she said. "Happy almost Christmas." "You too," Lily said. Said. She scooped up the snow globe and hugged it to her chest, careful of the crack. Then she leaned against Ava's shoulder, as if weighing something. "Are you going to talk to him?" she whispered. Ava looked over her head. Ethan was on his feet now, gathering the blankets into a neat pile. He rolled his shoulders once as if loosening muscles that had stiffened overnight. For a moment, he seemed ready to turn toward the door and keep walking. Then he caught Lily's eye. She lifted her chin in a tiny nod and tilted her head toward Ava. He hesitated. His hands tightened on the folded blankets. He let out a breath that shaped itself into a small cloud in the cool air near the window. He walked over. Lily slid to the side to make room. Ava shifted her throat suddenly a little dry. "Can I sit?" Ethan asked. His voice was quieter than it had been before the argument with Mark. "Yes," Ava said. He sat across from her. The table between them felt smaller in the morning light. Lily placed the snow globe gently in the center like a shared object in a classroom. "I am going to go see if they have more hot chocolate," she announced. "You already had 2, Ethan said. "I almost froze," she replied. "I deserve at least 3. He opened his mouth, closed it, and decided this was not the hill to die on. "Ask for a small one," he said. She grinned and slid out of the booth, the blanket trailing behind her. Within seconds, she was folded into a cluster of kids near the bar where a server was pouring warm drinks into styrofoam cups. For a moment, the world shrank to the corner booth, and the snow globe between them. "I am not a project," Ethan said. He broke the silence without preamble. His eyes were on the tiny village under glass. "I know," Ava said. "And I am not a bullet point on a slide in your quarterly report," he went on. "You are not," she said. He finally looked up. When he said those things, Ethan said, "It sounded like exactly the kind of story people like to tell. Look at our executive sitting with someone from the real world. Look at us reaching down." She flinched slightly at reaching down. "I get why you heard it that way," she said. "I would have too." The worst part, he said, was that a tiny part of me was relieved. If this was just some strange charity dinner, then I could put it in a box and never open it again. I could go home and tell myself it did not mean anything. And did it? She asked. He let the question hang. Last night, he said, for the first time in 3 years, I sat in a place like this and did not feel like I was sitting in someone else's life. I heard my daughter laugh with someone new. I talked about storms without wanting to walk out into one. That meant something. Then Mark opened his mouth, and it felt stupid to have let it. It was not stupid, Ava said. It felt like it, he said. I left my good sense at the door with my snow boots. A corner of her mouth twitched. They are not that bad, she said. They are awful, he replied. They squeak on every surface. They let the small joke sit there for a second, a thin bridge over deeper water. There is no program, Ava said. She spoke each word clearly like they were stones she was placing on the table. He made that up. We do donation drives. We do pro bono work sometimes. We do not send people out to collect real humans for the brand. I said yes to tonight because my friend thought I should meet someone who was not a client or a coworker. That is all. He said it very convincingly, Ethan replied. He is paid to be convincing, she said. In rooms where people sign checks, not here. She picked up her cold coffee and set it down again without drinking. When he started talking, I froze, she went on. Not because I agreed, but because his words hit every fear I have about how people see me. Like, I am using everything all the time. People, stories, moments. I should have shut him down sooner. I did not. That is on me, not you. He studied her face, looking for any trace of performance. He found only exhaustion and something like shame. Why does he get to talk to you like that? Ethan asked. Because I have let him, she said. Because it was easier to let him think he understood me than to correct him every time. That is my mistake, not yours. She drew in a breath. I am sorry he said what he did, she added, and I am sorry I did not stop him before it hit you. The apology landed with none of the smoothness of agency language. It was clumsy and direct, which made it feel real. Ethan let his shoulders drop a fraction. I want to believe you, he said. Do you? She asked. He looked down at the snow globe. The crack reflected the light in a thin line. I am trying, he said. He lifted his gaze again. Last night, I told you what I'm afraid of, he added. Losing Lily. Losing Rachel twice. I did not say I am also afraid that whatever comes next will be smaller, that I will spend the rest of my life pretending not to compare. And are you? She asked. Comparing, he said. I have not let myself get far enough to know. He rested his forearms on the table. When I grabbed Lily out of that snowbank, he said for a second I thought I had already lost her. Everything in me shut down. Then she breathed, and you put your scarf around her, and you put your back against the wind. That is the part my brain keeps replaying, not the panic. The way someone who barely knows her ran out there anyway. I was not going to let lying to let you do it alone, Ava said. He nodded. That is not charity, he said. That is something else. I do not have a word for it yet. They sat with that. Near the bar, Lily laughed at something a boy said. The sound carried across the room, light and clean. Ava turned her bracelet around her wrist, then slid it off and set it next to the snow globe. The clasp is weak here, she said. I bent it back together when it broke. It never sat right after that. He reached for it, then paused. Can I? He asked. Yes, she said. He picked up the bracelet and examined the thin metal. It was not the detailed work he usually did, but his fingers handled it with the same care he gave to old pipes and fragile fixtures. He saw where the link had twisted and where it might be strengthened. I can fix this, he said. Properly, I mean. Not here. I would need my tools. I know, she said. So, this is not symbolic, he added. I am not offering to fix you. That is not how that works. I know that too, she said. I am saying, he went on, that if you want me to look at it, that means you plan on seeing me again. There it was, plain and not decorated. Ava's throat felt tight around her next words. I do, she said. Plan on that, if you are not too tired of storms and agency people. I am very tired of agency people, he said. At least one of them, but I can make an exception. She laughed, the sound catching on the last breath. I cannot promise I will not mess up, she said. I have spent a long time being good at one thing. Work. I do not know how to do this without overthinking it. I cannot promise I will not panic and want to run, he said. I have a kid with a storm addiction and a house full of Imna memories. I am not simple. I did not think you were, she said. He set the bracelet gently back on the table between them. We could try, he said. No programs, no initiatives, just try. Okay, she said. She turned her hand over palm up a small, quiet offering. He looked at it for a moment. He could feel his heart beating in his throat. Then he placed his hand in hers. His palm was warm and a little rough. Her fingers were cooler. Their hands did not fit perfectly. They fit enough. Across the room, Lily watched them from the line at the bar, a styrofoam cup in both hands. She smiled into the rim. On her way back, she slid into the booth without knocking the table. She took a sip of hot chocolate, then set the cup down with exaggerated care. "I told you," she said, leaning into Ethan's side and giving Ava a conspiratorial look. "You like her." Ethan's ears reddened. He squeezed Lily's shoulder gently. "Drink your cocoa," he said. "Yes, Dad," she replied with the patience of someone who had been waiting for adults to catch up all night. Outside, the plow passed again, scraping a clearer path along the street. The snow kept falling, but the edges of the world were beginning to return. Inside, the copper lantern, 3 people sat around a table cluttered with empty cups, a cracked snow globe, and a bracelet waiting for repair. Their hands briefly linked while the storm receded beyond the glass. Snow fell again 1 year later. It came softer this time, drifting past the windows of a small third-floor apartment on a quiet Denver street. It gathered on the fire escape and on the narrow rail outside the living room, making the bricks look less tired. Inside, the air was warm and smelled like sugar and butter. Ethan stood in the kitchen with a mixing bowl and a wooden spoon. Flour dusted the front of his t-shirt. A string of colored lights ran along the tops of the cabinets, some bulbs older and dimmer than others, all of them working for the moment. "Are they done yet?" Lily called from the living room. "You asked me that 30 seconds ago," he said. "They could have gotten done," she replied. "Solid. Cookies do not bake that fast," he said, "even if you stare at the oven." She padded into the doorway, socks sliding a little on the floor. She had grown in the last year. Her hair was longer, her face a touch less round. The snow globe sat in her hands, paint at the base chipped in one corner, the crack now sealed with a clear line of glue. She shook it gently and watched flakes rise around the tiny tree. "It is Christmas Eve," she said. "Time moves different." "That is not how time works," he said. "It is in movies," she answered. He flicked a bit of flour at her. She laughed and dodged too late. "Hey," she said, "these are my good pajamas." "They have unicorns with sunglasses," he said. "They can survive flour." She hugged the snow globe to her chest. "Do you think she is coming?" she asked. He stirred the batter. "She said she was," he said. "She texted when she got off work. But sometimes people say they are coming and then they do not," Lily said. He looked up. "She is not those people," he said. "How do you know?" Lily asked. "I fixed her bracelet," he said. "You do not drive across town to drop off broken jewelry a dozen times if you are planning to disappear." Lily considered that logic and decided it made sense. She walked to the living room window and pressed her face to the glass. Outside, the world was turning the same soft silver as the year before, but the sight settled differently in her chest now. The coffee table in front of the couch was covered in colored paper scissors, a roll of tape, and a bowl of popcorn shared halfway between eating and decoration. A few paper trees and stars had already been cut and folded, waiting to be hung. On the wall behind the couch, a narrow shelf held a few framed photos. Lily had arranged them herself. There was one of her and Ethan at the park, taken by a stranger who had offered when he saw them, trying to fit into the frame. Next to it sat a picture of Rachel smiling into the sun on a hiking trail, hair caught in the wind. Beside that, a frame with a snapshot Ava had given them, her and her brother at the top of a ski run, helmets, crooked faces flushed with cold. At the end of the row, 2 small pictures leaned together. One of Rachel with Lily as a toddler, one of Ava and Lily at a fall festival, noses smudged with powdered sugar from funnel cake. Lily liked that the frames touched. A knock sounded at the door. She spun away from the window. "She is here," she said. Ethan wiped his hands on a towel and pulled the oven door open. The smell of baking cookies spilled out. The tops were just beginning to turn gold. "Do not open it," he called as Lily ran for the door. "I will get it. I just want to stand near it," she said, already at the handle. He crossed the room in a few steps, reached around her, and opened the door. Ava stood in the hallway, cheeks pink from the cold breath puffing in front of her. Snow dusted the shoulders of her coat. Her hair was tucked into a loose knot that had partly escaped on the walk. A canvas tote bag hung from one shoulder, its top bulging with paper and ribbon. In her other hand, she held a small metal box. "Merry almost "Come in," Ethan replied. He stepped aside. The warmth hit her as soon as she crossed the threshold, fogging her glasses for a second. She slipped off her boots and lined them up beside Lily's. The snow on them began to melt into small puddles. Lily launched herself forward and wrapped both arms around Ava's waist. "You came," she said into the coat. "Of course I did," Ava answered. She hugged Lily back, careful of the snow globe wedged between them. "I brought supplies," she went on, lifting the tote. "And something else." She held up her wrist. The bracelet glinted in the light from the string of bulbs. The chain sat smooth around her skin. The clasp was whole and straight, no longer bent. If you looked closely, you could see where the new metal met the old. "You wore it," Ethan said. "You fixed it," she replied. She set the metal box on the counter. When she opened it, rows of small tools gleamed inside. "Back up," she said, "in case a star or a tree has a structural failure." "I feel respected," he said. "You should," she answered. Lily tugged on Ava's hand. "We have a lot of paper to cut," she said. "Dad is slow." "I am methodical," Ethan said. "You are slow," Lily said. Ava laughed. "You take after him," she told Lily, "in the way you tell the truth." They spread out around the coffee table. Ava showed Lily a way to fold paper so that one cut became a string of tiny trees. Ethan attempted to make a star that did not have one point significantly larger than the others. There was a light argument about whether popcorn belonged more on string or in mouths, which ended with both options in play. Outside, snow layered itself quietly on the sill. Later, when the cookies had been pulled from the oven and left to cool, and the paper shapes hung with tape along the window and the wall, the three of them settled onto the couch. It was as Lily had once said, a big couch. She sat between them at first half under a blanket snow globe on her knees. Ethan's arm rested along the back. Ava's shoulder brushed his. Their hands found each other without much ceremony, fingers intertwining. They watched the snow through the glass and through the curve of the globe, where flakes drifted around the tiny tree and bench. "Are you still scared of storms?" Lily asked. Ethan thought about it. "Yes," he said, "a little." "What about you?" Lily asked Ava. "A little," Ava said. "That is okay," Lily decided. "You can hold on to each other." "We are," Ethan said. "Jizao," Ethan said. He felt Ava's hand tighten around his. Lily smiled, satisfied. She leaned forward and gently set the snow globe on the sill. Next to it sat another smaller globe Ava had brought from her apartment, the one with the ugly moose and the tiny mountain. Its glass had a faint scratch near the top. The two globes touched bases almost aligned. "They look good together," Lily said. "So do we," she added quieter. She slumped back into the cushion's, eyes heavy. Her head tipped toward Ava's shoulder. Ava shifted to support it, hand moving automatically to tuck hair behind Lily's ear. On the shelf, faces and frames caught the glow from the string lights, past and present, mountains and city, storms and clear days. The clock on the stove clicked over to midnight. "Merry Christmas," Ava said. Her voice was soft, the words more breath than sound. "Merry Christmas," Ethan answered. He turned his head, forehead resting for a moment against hers. In the window, their reflections sat side by side behind the two snow globes, faint and doubled in the glass. Lily stirred, eyes slitting open. "I told you," she murmured, drowsy and sure. "Big couch." Her words blurred into a yawn. Her eyes closed again. Ethan laughed quietly, the sound low and full. Ava felt it, where their shoulders touched. They sat like that, three shapes on one piece of furniture, while outside the snow fell in patient, unhurried sheets. Inside, lights glowed, paper stars turned slightly in the warm air, and two small glass storms rested on the sill, their cracks catching the light in thin, bright lines. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.